Bever is the newest employee here at Midwest Whitetail. He moved to Iowa from Indiana and spent most of the fall filming Jared Mills and doing some editing in the office. Finally, he met his residency requirement and had a chance to be the guy in front of the camera with the bow in his hand. And Brad was super excited about the opportunity to hunt here. And you're gonna see some stuff here that surprised me. I mean, I learned a lot from this episode because there were things that these guys did in the tree that I'm not sure that I would have tried. So check it out and learn right along with me as we follow Brad Bever on his first Iowa hunts.
Mind if we squeeze by you? Well, it's the evening of November 30th here, and Jared and I have slipped into this little spot on the project farm. We're back kind of tucked into the woods a little bit. We're on a peninsula that the creek actually makes, and there's a lot of tracks below us and even some beds right below us here, so that's a good sign. But we got out for a quick hunt this morning. Didn't see a lot of action, just one young buck and some does. We're hoping tonight will be better. We know there's some cornfields in the area that we're kind of banking on the deer moving to this evening, so hopefully we can catch something coming out of this bedding area and go into those. There's a lot of good mature bucks on this farm. I'm not going to be picky, so the first mature buck I can get a shot at, I'm going to go ahead and take. So we may only have a few hours left, but it's still November, so we'll see what happens.
That big squirrel.
That's the nice thing about being tucked back in the timber here. We see a lot of early movement. Those deer just kind of seem to pop up out of the ground. We were actually Jared and I were sitting here talking, and we had a decent sized buck come by. I don't think we had enough time to get footage of him, but after that it was just a parade, so we're gonna sit tight. We still have like an hour left, so it feels like one of those nights we're kind of in the bottom of the ninth here for the first archery season. Shotgun opens in the morning, so like I said, it feels good. We're gonna wait it out, so hopefully we can get a mature buck do the same thing. Okay, he's walking towards us. It's double drop time, I think. I think so. Do you see him now? Yeah, we can't shoot that deer. Yeah, it's him. He's coming. Oh yeah. Hey, glass that last buck. Glass that last buck. See who, I can't tell how big he is. He looks pretty good. You might need a grunt at him. Actually, I would do is, here, you want me a snort wheeze? Dude, that's a nice deer. Mature. Here, I'll snort wheeze at him, but I want him to almost get in the thick stuff. He's an 8, it looks like. A real heavy mature 8. Of course, I have 10 minutes battery life left. was here. I'm gonna give you this. Didn't hear you. There he is. Man, that's a stud, dude. That's a nice deer. Get him in here, Jared. There he looked. How smart we is. Is he looking? Yeah. I don't want him looking right at me when I do it, though. There, now he's not looking at you. Come on, dude. He's not gonna do it. Alright, that's all we can give him. Yeah. It's the same exact deer. Why don't you try rattling? We got nothing to lose. Better hurry so I can see him. Yeah. Yeah, just don't move too much. He put his head down, just wait. Alright. He's Fleming. Keep going. Yeah, you're good. Keep going. He's not even looking. He's looking like towards those does. You can hear it. Yeah, he can definitely hear it. He took a step our way. Okay. Stop. The shooter. Okay, he's looking down here. Just don't move right now. Okay, he might be coming. He's coming, dude. Just go slow. Yeah, he is coming. It's slow though. Okay. He's running. Just get your bow and get ready. I hope he comes straight across the creek, because that's going to be perfect. You see him? I have to spin around real quick. I lost him. Okay. I was trying to adjust that camera. If he comes over here, I got a really good shot. Okay. Wait till he starts walking to move. Okay, he's coming at us. walk right on the edge. Go on the edge right there. You might have to shoot him down in the creek. You shoot him there. Take your time. Let him quarter away a little more out there. Okay. Say when. You take whenever you're ready.
Right.
Get another arrow. Get another arrow. Go down, dude. Seriously. Just happened. I don't even know what to say. Dude, he is a stud. Oh, that's my first Iowa deer. Boom.
BBD. BBD, buddy. Yeah.
There you go, dude.
I can't believe it happened.
Look at us.
That's awesome. I don't want to look at you when I got this right here. Are you kidding me? I always wanted to do the sticker thing. Awesome. Thanks, guys, for coming out. Helping. One of my favorite things about filming hunts is being able to go back and rewatch these, and that's what Brad and I are doing right now, is just going through and kind of analyzing what we did and how it played out. And I think this is a good learning experience, not necessarily for everyone else, but even for Brad and I who were there that night. It's just cool to actually get a better look at what the buck did. You got to remember, we're looking through a viewfinder, we got other stuff going on in the tree. You can just learn so much just watching these back, seeing what the deer's body language was, and just taking little things away to carry on to other hunts. But one thing that I wanted to talk about first is just there's a lot of strategy that went into this whole calling session, and this isn't necessarily your typical scenario, because Brad and I had somewhat of a nothing to lose type of attitude. We had our backs against the wall. We were down to our final hour before gun season, and for that reason we were willing to be a little bit more aggressive. Smart, but a little more aggressive. So kind of keep that in mind as we're talking our way through how we called this deer and how it eventually played out. Okay, so two things to start with here. One, we had no cover, and we had snow behind us on a hillside, so we were silhouetted even more. So I was really concerned about getting picked off the moment we called this deer. So you'll hear me in a minute say, "Brad, get ready to not move," when I called this deer, because I knew he was gonna swing his head around, look right at us. And not that Brad didn't know not to move, but I've seen way too often where guys call or rattle or grunt or something, and then especially blind calling, you rattle and then you go and set your antlers down. Well, that's the time when the deer are looking directly at that source of the sound. So, and here's where I snort wheeze. The reason I chose to snort wheeze first is a couple of reasons, but mainly I think it's a more meaningful call than a grunt. You see yearling bucks, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds grunting a lot, and especially with a mature buck, but you don't see a 2-year-old snort wheezing at a mature buck. So this has a lot more meaning in saying, hey, there's a mature buck down here. It's actually worth its time to come check this out. And also, I've been in this situation before and have seen it work before. And just late season calling in general. Thinking back to last year, on the same date, Josh and I called Rex in November 30th. Just a day later, December 1st, we called Eli in. Both of those didn't result in a kill, but one that did result in a kill, December 6th of 2015, When Mike and I were hunting, we called a big mature buck in via snort wheeze and I think some grunting too, but eventually he came in on a string. But here's where I snort wheeze, so this is the first call of the night.
Snort wheeze that real quick. Here, get ready to not move though. You ready?
We obviously knew he heard it. You can see his ear turn right towards us. So there's no doubt, and it was super calm. So, I mean, there wasn't a question of our mind that he didn't hear us. But he keeps continuing on his path. And so here, I waited till he got behind that brush to grunt so he wouldn't be able to pick out the source or narrow down the source of that sound as easily. I don't even think he turned to us while he was in that brush. When you grunted, I don't think he even stopped. But I still think he heard it. So I still think it was a part of the whole, assessment that he was doing of what was going on down there. Definitely. Okay, so for this next snort wheeze, I wanted to make sure, because at this point he's even closer to us, not coming in, still going on his route, but he was technically closer. And I wanted to make sure that he was not looking at us during that snort wheeze. I wanted to make sure, and I couldn't see him because he was behind a tree, so I had to ask Brad if he's looking at us or not. And since he wasn't, I felt it was okay to go ahead and snort wheeze and add one more element.
I don't want him looking right at me when I do it though. There, now he's not looking at you. That's all we can give him. Yeah.
And there you can really see his tail flickering. Yeah. That tell-all tail flicker that they know there's something down there. He really wanted to come here. You could tell just body language. I think what hurt us here was the 3 or 4 does he was with. They had obviously gone on, but he just wasn't too convinced to come down yet. Yeah. You can read his body language. He's just going through like, should I not? And you heard me say that's all we can give him. So it was basically, I felt like we were at that point where any more calling wasn't going to do any good. It was just not worth doing. It was just kind of a wait and see what he does.
He's kind of trying to decide what he wants to do.
Okay, so we watch him walk off into the cover.
Yeah, at that point I thought it was over. I mean, obviously, like Jared said, we gave him everything we could. We didn't want to overcall. And he thought about it super hard, and then he said, I'm not going to do it. So I thought it was over at that point, but
I didn't think he was coming in. Like, I wasn't confident he was coming in, but I didn't think our shot was over. That's why I was curious to know what your thoughts were.
I did, just because I couldn't see the rest of the deer. I thought they were moved on to food, and I thought he was done. But what he came out, it was probably 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, it was super quick. We were like, well, there he is on the hill. But
what's funny is when he came back out 2 or 3 minutes, how much further away was he?
Yeah, pretty far.
I mean, I bet he added,
at least 100 yards.
Added extra 100 yards. Yeah, exactly.
Why don't you try rattling? We got nothing to lose.
Okay, so that sentence right there pretty much sums up our thoughts on this hunt. Again, we had our backs against the wall, final half hour, whatever it was. But we did have all those little pieces, the grunts, the snort wheeze, all that stuff, and nothing spooked him. So we felt rattling, 1, we got nothing to lose, but 2, that may be one final piece to the puzzle. May finally get him to, get his interest piqued enough to actually come in.
And another reason we kind of, or not a reason, but a good thing from him being so far away to rattle is that movement aspect we talk about. Yeah. I mean, the first time we called to him, he was only, 75, 100 yards off.
Yeah, 100 probably.
Make a lot of movement, rattling is better to do when he's further away.
Yeah.
Better hurry so I can see him.
you heard me tell Brad that I wanted to make sure I could see him because Brad had to turn away from the deer to hide the rattling motion. Again, no cover in the tree. And I think having a visual on him made a big difference.
Yeah, it was such a fun interaction because like I'm down there, I had my back to the deer, I couldn't even see, and so I'm talking through you to see what he's doing, and it was just a fun interaction, and you can see it on the video pretty well.
Honestly, this is probably one of the longest continuous rattling sequence I've ever been a part of, just because I just keep going. Yeah. My thoughts were, if this deer is not moving, if he's not running towards us and he's not running away from us, and he hasn't been convinced one way or another if it's danger, if it's worth coming in, why stop rattling? Keep going, because you got to wait for him to make the decision. So that's why we just kept going. And I honestly don't think I've ever rattled so long at a buck before.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it a lot. Like, it seems like when you see two bucks fight, I mean, they go at it for a long time. It's not just a 20-second, 30-second thing. So
yeah,
is that tail flick?
Yeah, there's that tail flick again. What did you think at this point? Did you think he was coming, or did you think he was still a long shot?
When I saw that tail flick, I knew. That's what flick and turn, and I knew he was coming. Of course, that we had a little buck come to the rattling below us.
Yeah,
and that's something that I think just was a huge factor in this guy coming. And again, I had my back to this deer, so Jared had his back to where I could see, and Jared couldn't even see the little buck.
Yeah, I could hear him in the snow just a matter of yards to our left.
As I was rattling, I'm like, there's another buck coming, and it was lots of fun. But I think that little buck definitely sold this guy.
That was the icing on the cake, that little buck, because we think this buck gets a little bit of catches a little bit of motion, and that might have been just enough to put him over the top. But I still think it was basically a bunch of pieces to the puzzle for this deer. Snartweeds, the grunt, the rattling, the motion of the little buck, it all kind of added up together to finally get his interest peaked enough to come on in. So just one of those examples where it all added together and worked out. I think there may be some lost opportunity for guys that are afraid to call too much, especially in a late season hunt like that, because they're obviously still responsive. And again, I've been in multiple situations where it's worked out. So unforgettable hunt, no doubt.
Absolutely.
I mean, it'll be one that's hard to top, and I just love going back and watching this and trying to take everything we can away from it and be better hunters on the next time out.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, obviously super fun to do. I mean, sitting here, I was shaking watching it again, but just to relive it, and it's just super fun to see how the deer reacts and watch his body language and learn from it. Didn't know I was closing it.
It was a lot of fun following Brad and Jared's hunt, and they taught me some stuff on this episode that I was a little bit surprised. Not that I'm surprised that I learned, but I was surprised that you could call that much and not put the deer on red alert. In the past, I've always felt like there's a certain point you hit where if you cross that line, you've called too much and the deer are just going to go the other way and you've educated that buck. But they've proven to me that that line might be a little bit further out there than what I thought it was. Well, that's it for this week's episode. Next week, we've got Caleb Byers with a hunt that he had recently, and we're going to start kicking off our efforts for the late season. I appreciate you joining me. We'll see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail. And remember to always dream big.